In some ways, what we do in the fellowship, when somebody says, I want to start a community, our first job is to pour a 5-gallon bucket of cold water over their heads. We try to talk them out of it, because it's harder to succeed at that than it is to make a success of joining and existing. Now, thank God some people don't listen to us and insist on starting one anyway, because we need more communities. It's just harder to succeed. So I want to talk about what I'm identifying. People who start a community need what I'm going to call a pioneer profile. They have to be pioneers. There's certain things you have to do to start. And then versus what I'm going to call a settler profile. What that looks like, meaning being part of an ongoing, functioning, healthy community. So let's walk through this list a little bit. The pioneer profile. You're going to need to enjoy starting things and the challenge of that. There's a chaos that goes with that. There's an unsettledness, there's a wide openness, there's an opportunity, you have a blank slate. You wake up in the morning, oh boy, I get to create, rather than, oh boy, I have no idea what I'm doing and there's so much to do. So does that feel overwhelming or exciting? Those are important elements. You need to have enthusiasm for being creative to be a successful pioneer. That's not necessarily what you need to be a successful settler. All right? There's also you've got to be very committed to actualizing things, not just talking about things. I mean, you have to be willing to implement, you've got to roll your sleeves up, you've got to do the things you talk about. It doesn't mean you don't talk about it, it means you also have to do it. Because there's very few people in the beginning to do the work. It's not just, oh, I will manage it from a desk and everybody will do the work for me. You've got to have doers to make the thing happen. And there's a number of communities who have a great vision that fail because they don't have enough doers. You've got to have doers. Whereas you can have fewer of those roll up the sleeves, do people when you're in the maintenance mode. But at the beginning, you've got to have that element. Now, the interesting thing is, you can have a dynamism in the beginning phases and a willingness to jump in because you've got small numbers and stuff that's got to happen now or that you'll lose the inspiration. You can be celebrated for your decisiveness and creativity and your get-it-done nature, and then get creamed for that same quality once you're in the settler stage. Because people will want to slow down and be clearer about, did you check it all out with everybody? Whereas there's very few people to check it out with in the beginning, and the thing will die if you don't do it sometimes. Later on, that same quality will not be celebrated. You have to understand that that's going to make a shift. Okay? There's going to be a need among your pioneering group that some portion of those people are inspirational, not just through their actions, but by their personality. They're going to have to draw people in. People are going to want to live with that person or these people. There has to be a quality that's not just that I have something in writing that's good, but there's going to have to be a personal connection that people will want. I want to be with that person. There has to be that dynamism. That's not as important in the settler phase, but in the beginning you need that. There needs to be a charisma. Not every person, but it has to be present in the group in order to make it, to carry through. There needs to be a stubbornness and a dynamism and a willingness to labor in the chaos at the beginning. It's not necessary later. So you have to ask yourself, is that present either in yourself or in your group in order for this to succeed? Get that? All right. I'm going to move on a little bit and talk a little bit about what I'm going to call Queen Bee Syndrome. There's a particular challenge to cooperative leadership. Communities are cooperative ventures. They're not just business ventures. I mean, there is a business aspect, but there's a way in which you're trying to do this, you build this relationship, this cooperative dynamic. Now, exactly how you make decisions could look different ways. Essentially, though, communities are cooperative ventures. So that means you're trying to do something together that people, it's not done to people, it's done with them. You have this dynamic thing. So what is, again, this is another version of what is inspiring at the outset about being a leader and your dynamism and get stuff done. But I think, thank God you were there to get this done. You need to be able to let go of some of that as you move to a more stable position into the ongoing settler phase. It's got to be possible then to create room for other leaders to come forth. If it remains you, it's going to get brittle. You're going to have to be able to let go and expand in a way that it will be you, maybe, or a very small number of yous at the beginning. And then as you get successful, you have to diffuse that. You have to plan your exit as a leader. If you're reinforcing it and nobody's ever quite good enough to replace you, it's gonna not work. You're not gonna have a stable community. And that people could be very good at the front end and not so good at the back end. There are any number of stories in the communities movement of ousted leaders who were essential to the startup of the community and couldn't make the transition to the shared leadership that was necessary for the stable phase. So you have to understand, like, if I'm going to be in a leadership position as a starter, and you're going to need to be, starters have to have leaders. You can't just say, I'm going to build a community and wait for the leader to build it for me. That's not going to work. You're going to have to be in a leadership role, and you have to figure out how to plan your transition. Does that make sense? It's harder because the kinds of rewards you get in the regular society for business success, you can get a big salary, get a car, get all this stuff. There's all these perks and recognition and celebration, and you can be a leader sort of forever in that model. You have to make a transition to be successful in a cooperative community. So you can't stay in that same place. All right. A lot of groups don't. They'll get started and not understand that's part of the deal. All right. One of the reasons that I think it becomes imperative to start a community rather than join one is because you're location specific. That is, there are people, maybe you need to care for your mother and she's nearby and you just can't be very physically apart from her. That's fine. I'm not here to talk you out of your equation of what's important to you. Or there's a climate need. You've got to be in a place that's got a certain humidity or temperature range because of health reasons or whatever. For whatever reason, you have a narrow range of options that are going to really work for you geographically. And there's no place in that circle that works for you to join. So if you want community, you're going to have to manifest it there. Sometimes that's part of the deal. The wider range you can have about what can work for you, paring down what is essential to me and what I want out of the community experience, the wider that range, then the more likely it is you'll find something that's already out there that can work for you. And then maybe you don't have to start it.